The cold reaches the valley before darkness does. Wind moves through the grass and low brush, bending everything toward the same distant ridge. The last light is fading behind the mountains, and a small human group is still crossing open ground with stone tools, hides, and pieces of food gathered during the day. Ahead, a cave opens in the rock. From a distance, it looks like safety. Its entrance is wide enough to break the wind. The stone promises shelter from the falling temperature. A fire could be started near the mouth, and the group might remain there until morning. Then they come close enough to see the ground. Something has passed through recently. Tracks disturb the dust near the entrance, though fading light makes their age difficult to judge. Some edges have softened beneath wind and loose sediment. Others still appear sharp. Broken animal bones lie beside the wall. They might have rested there for years. They might not. Deep scratches cross the stone above them. An animal smell lingers in the air flowing from the cave, stronger than damp earth and old bone. Beyond the entrance, daylight reaches only a short distance. The floor slopes into shadow, then disappears. The back of the chamber cannot be seen. The group stops. Outside, the temperature continues to fall. Inside, they may be standing at the edge of a powerful animal's shelter. Silence offers no answer. An empty cave is silent. So is a cave containing an animal that has heard strangers approaching and remains completely still. They cannot stay exposed for long. But they cannot walk blindly into the darkness. The exact moment is a reconstruction, not a documented event. Yet groups living in Ice Age landscapes face decisions like this whenever shelter had already been claimed by something stronger, faster, or better adapted to the dark. One person may remain near the entrance while another studies the tracks. Their size matters. Their direction matters. So does the loose sediment that has fallen into them. Someone examines the bones without moving too close. Fresh remains might carry tissue, moisture, or a stronger smell. Older bones become dry and pale. Tooth marks could suggest that a carnivore fed here, but not whether it left hours ago or seasons ago. The group waits and listens. Nothing moves. A small flame is prepared outside, where wind makes it difficult to protect. Carried toward the opening, its light reaches beyond the last daylight and reveals more of the floor. More bones. Claw marks. A narrow passage leading deeper into the rock. The flame trembles, and shadows move where no living thing may be moving at all. Caves like this could pass between very different occupants. In some regions, cave bears return to particular caves for hibernation across many generations. Their bodies, tracks, and scratches accumulated in places that later humans might also use. Hyenas carried prey and scavenged remains into sheltered chambers. Neanderthals entered some of those same caves at other times. Later Homo sapiens might return to a floor already layered with traces from animals and earlier human groups. They did not necessarily meet. Centuries could separate one occupation from another. But when a new group arrived, all those earlier presences remained within the stone. The famous home of the cavemen was often not a home waiting to be claimed. It was contested ground temporarily borrowed from predators, weather, darkness, and the people who had come before. The flame reveals no fresh movement. Still, the narrow passage remains unreadable. If an animal is deeper inside, the group cannot know whether fire will frighten it away or trap it between flame and stone. If the cave is empty, spending the night outside would waste the best shelter in the valley. They test the entrance cautiously. A stone may be thrown beyond the light. The sound strikes the floor, then echoes into the unseen chamber. Nothing answers. They wait longer. Cold air moves around their bodies. Darkness gathers over the valley until the open landscape is becoming as difficult to read as the cave. The decision can no longer be delayed. They enter only as far as necessary. The group claims the entrance zone, not the cave itself. A fire is started where moving air can carry smoke outward. Tools and food remain close to the opening. The dark passage stays beyond the flames, while the valley and the route of escape remain visible behind them. This is the compromise. Stone between the group and the wind. Fire between the group and the darkness. An open exit if something appears from either direction. Even after the flames strengthen, the chamber does not feel completely controlled. The animal smell remains beneath the smoke. Bones lie beyond the circle of light. The narrow passage continues into a part of the cave that no one has searched. For now, the group does not need to conquer it. They need only enough shelter to survive the night. The entrance offers protection without cutting people off from the outside world. Daylight can reach it during working hours. Fresh air moves through it. From there, people can watch the valley, follow the weather, and leave quickly if danger returns. Near the fire, food can be prepared and tools repaired. Stone flakes fall beside the hearth. Bones may be broken for marrow. The flames provide warmth, light, and some protection from animals. But fire creates its own difficulty. Too close to the opening, strong wind can weaken it or scatter sparks. Too deep inside, smoke may collect beneath the ceiling and make breathing painful. People did not need a modern theory of ventilation to learn which locations worked. Experience provided the lesson immediately. A well-placed hearth turned the entrance into a temporary camp. Thousands of years later, traces of these choices can remain: charcoal, burned sediment, soot, stone flakes, broken tools, and animal bones marked by heat or cutting. But a cave floor rarely preserves one simple event. Hyenas may have left tooth-marked bones before humans arrived. Water might move smaller remains. Bears, later visitors, or shifting sediment could disturb older layers. Archaeologists try to separate these histories through patterns. Cut marks differ from carnivore damage. Burning can connect some remains with a hearth. Sediment may reveal whether objects belong together or were mixed later. Even then, uncertainty remains. A bone beside a fire did not necessarily belong to the people who made it. A tool near bear remains does not prove humans killed the bear. Scratches on a wall may predate the hearth below them by thousands of years. The cave preserved several stories in the same place. It did not preserve labels. As the group settles near the entrance, smoke begins replacing the older animal smell. The valley beyond has disappeared into darkness, though wind still passes across the opening. The shelter is good enough. That does not make it permanent. The group may remain for one night, several days, or part of a hunting season. Another human group could return years later and build a new fire over the same ground. Repeated occupation does not mean continuous residence. Between visits, the cave might remain empty, gather sediment, flood, or return to animals. A shelter used by humans in one season could become a den in another. Different caves also offered different conditions. A shallow rock shelter might remain bright and open. A deep limestone cave could narrow into chambers far beneath the landscape. Some interiors stayed relatively dry. Others were wet, unstable, or difficult to enter. There was no single Ice Age cave experience. Nor was there one human population living the same way everywhere. Neanderthals, early Homo sapiens, and other groups moved through different climates over enormous spans of time. Some caves became places of repeated return. Others preserved only a brief pause, one fire, several flakes of stone, and the remains of a meal. The people beside this hearth did not spend their entire lives inside rock. They arrived from a wider world. Their routes may have followed rivers, animal trails, forest edges, or open grasslands. Water, stone, plants, and migrating herds shaped movement across the landscape. Many Ice Age communities used open-air camps. They made fires beneath the sky, processed animals near hunting locations, shaped tools beside rivers, and built shelters from wood, branches, hides, or other materials that rarely survived. The cave was one place within that territory. Not the whole territory. Its walls simply gave certain traces a better chance of enduring. Outside, tracks could disappear beneath the next wind. Rain might scatter ash. Rivers could bury or erode a camp. Wooden supports decayed, hides vanished, and plant fibers returned to the soil. Inside, charcoal and bone could be covered by sediment and protected. That difference would one day strengthen the image of permanent cavemen. The open landscape lost much of its evidence. The cave remembered more. But better preservation does not prove that caves were the center of Ice Age life. A single night inside stone may survive more clearly than months spent moving through valleys beyond it. For the people near the fire, none of this matters yet. They remain close to the exit. The entrance offers warmth without complete enclosure, workspace without total darkness, and shelter without surrendering their view of the outside world. Food is prepared. Tools are repaired. The group rests. The narrow passage remains beyond the flames. No animal emerges. Perhaps nothing is there. Perhaps the deeper chamber was abandoned long ago. Still, no one can see its end. The fire creates a boundary rather than removing the mystery. On one side lies a practical human camp. On the other, the cave continues beyond ordinary use. Anyone entering those deeper chambers must carry light and fuel. They must cross uneven ground, remember turns, and protect the flame from drafts or moisture. A failed light could leave them in complete darkness. The route back might pass through narrow openings where movement was slow. These were poor places for watching game, processing large animals, or carrying out most daily tasks. Yet at certain Ice Age sites, people went there deliberately. Footprints continue beyond the last natural light. Pigments and marks appear on walls where daylight never reached. Images were created in chambers that required difficult journeys through stone. Objects were carried inward and left behind. Not every deep cave was symbolic, and not every unusual trace proves ritual. Some activities may have had practical purposes that are no longer obvious. But these spaces were entered for reasons different from escaping wind. The group at the entrance has no need to explore tonight. Its fire burns steadily, and the valley remains only a few steps away. The chamber provides enough shelter for food, tools, warmth, and rest. Beyond that small human circle, the cave continues into darkness. There is no daylight there. No easy escape. Little obvious value for ordinary work. And yet, in caves across the Ice Age world, people chose to go farther. If shelter, food preparation, and work could happen close to the entrance, why did some Ice Age people travel deep into chambers where there was no daylight and little practical reason to remain? The fire near the entrance has burned low. Beyond it, someone lifts a smaller flame and turns toward the passage. The journey begins where ordinary shelter ends. Only a narrow circle of stone is visible at any moment. The floor rises, then drops without warning. Bare feet, or feet wrapped simply against the cold, must test each surface before trusting it. A low ceiling forces the group to bend. Farther ahead, the passage narrows between walls shaped by water and time. Behind them, the entrance fire becomes smaller. Then it disappears. This is a reconstruction rather than one recorded journey. Yet footprints, pigments, objects, and images found beyond natural daylight prove that Ice Age people made journeys like it. They entered darkness deliberately. The flame bends in an air current that remains hidden until it reaches them. Smoke gathers against the ceiling before slipping toward some unseen opening. Water falls somewhere beyond sight. One drop. Then another. The sound seems close, though it may come from a chamber much farther away. Shadows change whenever the flame changes. A ridge in the wall becomes a crouched shape, then returns to stone. A protruding rock appears to block the route until another angle reveals a narrow way around it. Every turn must be remembered. A passage that looks distinct while entering may resemble another on the return. A sloping floor can lead downward so gradually that no one realizes how far the entrance has receded. Most dangerous of all is the light itself. The flame depends upon fuel, dry material, and careful hands. A draft can weaken it. Moisture can make it difficult to renew. If the light fails, there is no moon, no distant opening, and no moment when the eyes adjust. There is only darkness. Why accept these dangers when warmth, food, work, and shelter are already waiting near the mouth of the cave? The answer begins with a simple correction. A cave was never one single kind of place. Near the entrance, people could maintain a hearth, prepare food, repair tools, work hides, and watch the surrounding landscape. A protected side chamber might hold fuel, pigment, useful stone, or animal parts intended for later use. Another area could become a temporary workshop or place for processing meat. Farther inside, people sometimes left objects, human remains, marks, or images where no ordinary domestic task required them. This does not mean every cave served every purpose. Some were shallow shelters. Others extended through complex passages. Their uses changed with region, season, climate, available resources, and the people who entered them. A cave was not a prehistoric house with fixed rooms. It was a changing landscape within the larger landscape. Even its practical use could be organized with care. In a sheltered area, stone cores were struck to produce sharp flakes. Damaged edges could be repaired. Hides were scraped, meat divided, and bones opened for marrow. Useful materials might remain in a dry place until the group moved on or returned. At some sites, evidence suggests Neanderthals delayed breaking certain long bones so the marrow could be consumed later. This was not a modern storage system. It was evidence of planning. Food did not always need to be used immediately, and a protected space could allow resources to be saved for a later need. The remains of these activities are modest. A cluster of flakes. A darkened hearth. A broken tool. Animal bone carrying cut marks or heat damage. Yet together they reveal decisions: where to work, what to carry inside, what to use now, and what to keep. Some caves attracted these decisions repeatedly because of what lay outside them. A river crossing. A protected valley. A source of workable stone. A route followed by animals during part of the year. One group might remain briefly, then leave when the season changed. Years or generations later, another could return. The later visitors might notice soot where an earlier fire had burned. A discarded tool could rest near the wall. Pigment might stain a stone. Old bones might show that people had processed animals there before. Beneath newer sediment, the edge of an older hearth might remain as a dark band in the floor. A stone flake could still hold the unmistakable sharpness of deliberate work. Red pigment might cling to a rock after the hand that placed it had vanished. Disturbed ground could suggest footsteps without preserving where they led. The later visitors could recognize human choices in these traces, but not the names, voices, relationships, or fate of the people who made them. They would recognize human action. But they could not know the names of those earlier visitors, their language, or why they had left. Long before written history, people were already entering places shaped by humans they would never meet. The cave held an anonymous memory. Its ash, flakes, bones, and altered floor announced that others had judged this shelter useful and added their own traces to those left by animals. Bears, hyenas, Neanderthals, Homo sapiens, and later communities might use the same cave at widely separated times. Sediment divided some occupations. Later activity disturbed others. They did not all live there together. The cave simply outlasted them. But practical activity does not explain everything preserved inside stone. The change begins quietly. A line of pigment appears where no food was processed. A hand shape remains on a wall. An object has been carried farther than ordinary work required. Footprints continue after daylight has vanished. A skull or part of one rests in a place where simple disposal may not fully explain its presence. One unusual object does not prove ritual. Water can move remains. Carnivores carry bones. Sediment shifts, and later visitors disturb earlier deposits. But when unusual choices repeat, the practical explanation becomes less complete. Pigment is applied deliberately. A difficult chamber is entered more than once. Particular objects are selected and carried inward. Images appear where they can be seen only by people bringing light. The question is not whether Ice Age humans lived in a fantasy world. It is whether some caves became places of memory, identity, burial, storytelling, ceremony, or actions whose meanings disappeared with the people who performed them. One of the most unusual examples comes from Cueva Descubierta in central Spain. There, archaeologists uncovered an accumulation associated with Neanderthal activity. Among the remains were skulls or skull parts from large herbivores, including bison and wild cattle. These were not simply complete carcasses left after ordinary meals. The concentration of cranial remains and the selection of particular animal parts made the pattern difficult to explain through routine food processing alone. Researchers have proposed that it may represent symbolic behavior. That interpretation is significant. It is not certain. No preserved account explains why those remains were brought into the cave, and the evidence does not justify calling the place a confirmed temple or shrine. The skulls may have been trophies. They may have carried memories connected with hunts or group experience. They may have held meanings that can no longer be recovered. What matters is the repeated choice to carry particular remains away from the place where the animals had fallen. The action survived. Its meaning did not. Human remains found in caves create a similar uncertainty. Some appear to have been placed deliberately. Others may have reached their positions through accidental death, carnivore activity, natural movement, or later disturbance. A skeleton inside a cave is not automatically a burial. But where intentional placement is strongly supported, the evidence reveals care and attention without revealing a complete belief system. A place used by the living could also become connected with the dead. Once human remains were placed within it, a chamber was no longer simply empty stone. Later visitors may have remembered who was there, or they may have encountered remains from a past too distant to explain. Either way, the cave could connect generations through physical presence. The flame in the deep passage continues forward. The people carrying it have left the ordinary camp far behind. The air is still except where hidden currents bend the light. The floor narrows beneath them, then opens unexpectedly. A wall appears. At first, it seems unmarked. Then the flame moves. A dark line becomes visible across the stone. A patch of red pigment rests beside a natural crack. Farther along, the outline of an animal begins to emerge from the uneven surface. It cannot be seen all at once. A curve in the rock forms part of the back. A crack suggests the line of a flank. Shadow completes the lower body. As the flame is raised, the animal's head appears while its hindquarters recede into darkness. Lower the light, and the body returns while the head becomes only a few uncertain lines. From one position, the wall's natural swelling forms a shoulder. From another, the same curve disappears. The image depends upon movement, not of the animal, but of fire, perspective, and human attention. One person may hold the flame while another protects the fuel and watches the passage behind them. The route back must remain remembered even while every eye is drawn toward the wall. Pigment, tools, and light have all been carried through narrow stone to reach this chamber. Nothing about the act is accidental. It requires time, preparation, and a decision to bring human attention into a place completely separated from the practical life near the entrance. When the light shifts, the image appears to change. Nothing supernatural is happening. The wall remains still. But firelight is unstable. Shadows lengthen and contract. Natural ridges appear and disappear. Overlapping outlines become visible from different positions. A stone protrusion becomes a shoulder. A dark hollow becomes the space beneath a body. The artist did not always treat the wall as a flat surface. The shape of the cave itself could become part of the animal. Many famous examples of deep cave art are associated with Homo sapiens during the Upper Paleolithic. Some claims concerning very early cave art and Neanderthal authorship remain debated. But at numerous sites, the physical act is undeniable. People carried light beyond daylight. They brought pigment and tools. They studied underground surfaces and created or revisited images in chambers poorly suited to ordinary daily life. This demanded planning. Enough fuel was needed to enter, remain, and return. Materials had to be carried across difficult ground. The route could not be forgotten. The chamber itself may have been chosen for privacy, controlled access, storytelling, ceremony, group memory, or the intensity of the underground experience. Different caves may have held different meanings. The same chamber could also acquire new meanings over centuries. No universal answer survives. Sound may have shaped the experience as strongly as light. A voice can travel strangely underground. Footsteps return from walls that cannot be seen. A quiet sound in one chamber may disappear, while elsewhere it comes back with unexpected force. This does not prove a particular ritual or form of music. It reveals how deeply the cave altered perception. The outside world vanished. Distance became difficult to judge. Time could no longer be measured by the movement of daylight. Fire determined what existed within sight, and everyone depended upon shared light and knowledge of the path. These conditions alone could make a chamber powerful. Entering it separated people from ordinary camp life. The valley, weather, food, and daily work remained near the entrance. Deeper inside, attention narrowed to stone, darkness, sound, memory, and the presence of others. Perhaps that separation mattered. The exact meanings are gone. What remains are decisions. A hand placed against stone. A line of pigment applied beyond daylight. Footprints crossing a chamber floor. An object carried inward and never removed. Together, they show that some Ice Age people transformed underground spaces into places with purposes beyond shelter. Most caves, however, contain no famous paintings, and many deep chambers preserve no clear symbolic activity. A cave used for burial in one period might become a temporary shelter in another. An image could be added centuries after the first visit. A single cave might serve as shelter, workshop, temporary store, burial place, or symbolic landscape at different times. It was rarely all of these at once. The person carrying the flame begins the return. The passage looks different from the opposite direction. A turn that seemed obvious while entering now divides into two shadows. The ceiling lowers sooner than expected. Smoke has darkened the flame. Water still falls somewhere beyond sight. Then a faint glow appears ahead. Not the entrance fire itself at first. Only a subtle change in the darkness. The practical world slowly returns. The larger hearth is still burning. Tools remain beside it. Food, warmth, and fresh air wait within the familiar circle of ordinary life. The journey inward has produced nothing clearly necessary for physical survival. No better shelter. No easier path. No view of the valley. Whatever happened in the deeper chamber belonged to another part of being human. Thousands of years later, stone protected traces from both worlds. Near the entrance, hearths, tools, bones, and trampled sediment preserved practical decisions. Farther inside, darkness protected pigments, footprints, images, and objects placed beyond natural light. These traces now dominate how the Ice Age is imagined because caves shielded them from weather and disturbance. A footprint endured where rain could not reach. Pigment remained on stone. Charcoal settled beneath sediment. But this creates another problem. Caves may have preserved an unusual part of human life while much of the ordinary world disappeared outside. The riversides where tools were shaped. The open camps where food was shared. The forest edges where wood, plants, and hides were gathered. The temporary shelters built from materials that decayed. The routes followed across changing seasons. Most of that world had no stone ceiling to protect it. The evidence that survives most vividly is not always the evidence that represented most of life. A brief journey underground may remain visible for tens of thousands of years, while months spent beside a river leave almost nothing recognizable. The cave may feel like the center of the Ice Age world because it kept what the open landscape lost. And so the mystery turns outward. If caves preserved only a small and unusual part of Ice Age life, how much of the real human world disappeared beyond their entrances? Morning enters the cave slowly. First, the entrance turns gray. Then pale light reaches the cold ashes of the fire. Several stone flakes remain where they fell, and a broken bone lies near the wall. The group begins to leave. Outside, frost or moisture covers the grass. A river moves through the valley, reflecting the first light between reeds and exposed stone. Animal tracks cross the damp earth. Farther away, dark shapes move across open ground. The people may recognize the direction of a herd, the path toward water, and the routes connecting this valley with other familiar places. Behind them, the cave becomes a dark opening in the rock. It was useful. It protected them from wind, held their fire, and gave them a place to rest and work through the night. But it was not necessarily home. Ahead lies the world where most of their lives unfold. They move toward water, food, stone, wood, animals, and other temporary stopping places. Almost immediately, evidence of their departure begins to fade. Footprints soften in wet ground. Grass rises after bodies pass. Animal tracks cross the human trail. Wind lifts ash from an exposed hearth. Rain alters the soil, and the river carries sediment from one bank to another. If an entire day of human life can begin disappearing within hours, what remains after 40,000 years? The Ice Age was not one world permanently locked beneath snow. Its environments varied across regions and changed over time. Human groups moved through grasslands, river valleys, forests and woodland edges, mountain routes, coastal plains, and seasonal landscapes shaped by water and weather. Their movement was not random. People knew where rivers could be crossed, where animals passed during certain seasons, and where workable stone could be found. They watched the sky, gathered wood and food, followed familiar paths, and chose when to remain or move. A temporary hearth might be built beside a river. Tools could be repaired near a source of stone. Food might be prepared where animals had been hunted or where water was close. Routes were learned through repeated movement and passed between generations through experience. The landscape was not empty space between caves. It was the larger human world. Within that world, shelter did not always require stone. People could use wood, branches, hides, grasses, and existing natural protection. Some structures may have been carefully built. Others could have been simple windbreaks intended for a short stay. There was no universal Ice Age house. The form depended on climate, available materials, the size of the group, and how long people expected to remain. But even a well-made shelter could disappear quickly after abandonment. Wood absorbed moisture. Bindings weakened. Hides and grasses decayed. Wind scattered light material, while roots, frost, and animals disturbed the ground beneath it. A cave entrance might remain visible for tens of thousands of years. A shelter made from branches and hide might leave only faint traces, or none that can still be recognized. The absence of a surviving structure does not prove that no shelter existed. It may only mean that the shelter was made from materials time could easily destroy. The same imbalance shapes what survives of Ice Age technology. Stone tools dominate the archaeological record because stone endures. A stone point survives while its wooden shaft disappears. A cutting edge remains while its handle and binding vanish. A stone flake endures while the bag, cord, or hide associated with it is lost. Stone is only the part of the system that resisted time. The complete tool may once have combined several materials. It may have required careful assembly, repeated repair, and knowledge transmitted through observation and practice. When the organic parts disappear, the surviving stone can look isolated and simpler than the object once was. Open-air archaeological sites reveal how much activity occurred beyond caves. One important example is Ein Kashish, in what is now northern Israel. Ein Kashish is an open-air Middle Paleolithic site associated with repeated Neanderthal activity. It was not a permanent town, and the evidence does not suggest that one population lived there continuously. It records returns. Neanderthals used this open landscape at different times, carrying out activities in a place without cave walls. Water, animals, useful resources, and movement routes may all have contributed to its importance. The site matters because it preserves a form of life easily overlooked by the image of the caveman. Neanderthals did not simply move from cave to cave. They selected open places, worked there, and returned when the landscape made those places useful. Other open-air sites preserve brief camps, hunting locations, stoneworking areas, and repeated occupations in many regions. Together, they show flexible use of entire territories. But an exposed camp faces a difficult future once people leave. Imagine one beside a river. During the first hours, the smoke fades and footprints lose their sharp edges. Wind moves ash and loose fragments. Animals approach what has been abandoned. Across the following seasons, rain spreads the hearth through the soil. Plants grow across the camp. Frost, roots, animals, and water disturb the objects that remain. Across millennia, rivers change course. Erosion removes part of the ground while sediment buries another. Coastlines shift, climates change, and later people alter the surviving landscape. Not every site experiences the same process. Some open-air occupations are buried quickly and preserved under favorable conditions. Others become fragmented. Some disappear. The landscape is not an empty archive waiting quietly for archaeologists. It is active. This means the past reaches the present through a series of filters. People carried away objects they still needed and abandoned only part of their activity. Organic materials decayed more easily than stone. The surviving site then faced burial, erosion, and later disturbance. After all of that, it still had to be discovered, dated, and interpreted correctly. Only a small part of the surviving evidence eventually enters museums, books, documentaries, and popular imagination. By the time a stone point appears behind glass, much of the world surrounding it has vanished. Archaeology does not recover the complete past. It reconstructs human life from what escaped destruction. This does not make archaeology weak or meaningless. It makes careful interpretation essential. Researchers understand that caves and durable objects may be overrepresented. They compare different kinds of sites, study how landscapes change, and treat absence cautiously. The mystery is not created by hidden evidence or deliberate neglect. It comes from the unequal way materials survive. Caves became the visual symbol of the Ice Age partly because they offer such powerful evidence in one recognizable place. A dark entrance. Firelight. Bones. Stone tools. Footprints. Painted walls. Layered ground protected by rock. A cave has clear boundaries. A visitor can stand inside it and imagine another fire burning in the same chamber thousands of years earlier. An open seasonal route has no walls. A vanished shelter has no interior. A riverside camp may survive only as scattered flakes and altered sediment. The cave provides an image. The landscape provides patterns. Over time, the place that preserved evidence became confused with the place where all life happened. The phrase cavemen turned a preservation pattern into a human identity. That image is incomplete, not entirely false. Ice Age people did use caves. They sheltered and worked near entrances. Some placed human remains within them or traveled into deep chambers where unusual actions took place. The mistake is not including caves in the story. The mistake is allowing them to replace the rest of the world. Much of ordinary life left weaker evidence. Plant gathering and processing rarely produced objects as durable as stone. Wooden and fiber technologies decayed. Seasonal routes vanished beneath changing ground. Knowledge passed through speech and demonstration could shape survival for generations without becoming a physical artifact. Some coastal areas used by ancient populations are now submerged beneath water as shorelines changed. Ordinary activities may have filled most days while leaving nothing that can be displayed in a museum. This does not allow us to invent whatever is missing. Lost evidence cannot prove specific customs, tools, or beliefs. The vanished world must remain grounded in what surviving traces and reasonable inference can support. But those traces are enough to show that human life extended far beyond the durable objects that remain. A modern archaeologist can enter a cave and stand near an ancient hearth, footprint, or image. The physical closeness is immediate. Someone made this fire. Someone crossed this floor. Someone carried pigment into this darkness. Outside, the same archaeologist may walk through a valley that appears almost empty. The cave feels inhabited because it remembers visibly. The valley feels empty because its evidence has been dispersed. But the emptiness is deceptive. Generations may have crossed that ground, gathering food, repairing tools, sharing knowledge, and following routes that left no permanent line. The valley could have contained far more human life than the cave. It simply preserved less of it. The story returns to the entrance from the first night. The group has gone. The hearth is extinguished. Ash remains near the wall. Stone flakes lie where tools were repaired. A broken bone rests beneath sediment slowly gathering across the floor. Later, an animal may enter. Years or generations afterward, another human group may use the same shelter and leave new traces above the old ones. Inside the cave, parts of that night have a chance to survive. Outside, the group's route begins disappearing almost at once. Their footprints fade. Their temporary shelter decays. Wooden objects vanish. Their journeys across the valley leave no permanent path. Thousands of years later, archaeologists may uncover the hearth, identify the flakes, and study marks on the bone. The cave may appear to contain the group's entire existence. But it preserves only one night, several days, or one repeated part of a much larger life. The cave is not lying. It is simply the witness that survived. Stone protected a selected but valuable fragment. That fragment reveals fire, shelter, work, danger, planning, treatment of the dead, and deliberate journeys into darkness. But it cannot represent everything. The word cavemen compresses diverse populations, environments, and ways of life into one enclosed image. Caves could be shelters, workshops, contested spaces, places of return, and locations of extraordinary human actions. Ordinary life extended beyond them. It unfolded beneath open skies, beside rivers, along forest edges, across grasslands, and through routes shaped by seasons and memory. The people of the Ice Age did not belong to the caves. They belonged to rivers, valleys, forests, grasslands, and migration routes that have almost completely disappeared. The caves simply remembered them longer.